and walk off.
Okay, just give me 1 second.
All right,
Trying to think of a good David Bowie song.
that's a good one to start.
Yeah. Uh, all right, cool. I've got it.
Okay.
All right, I'm ready to go.
Yep.
All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome to another episode of the Sports Pulse. I am Brian Brennan,
I'm Ethan Winter.
and Sean McNiff cannot join us today because he is at the UMD Terps game. They
Or
won.
he was.
Yeah, he was. They
Was
won.
at the game.
I think 100-65. Some of Ohio State.
I
Uh,
think it was like 98 to 65 or something.
the,
I don't think they broke 100
well, either way, UMD won
and
again.
destroyed. It was
165. That's what it was. 100 to
okay.
65. So UMD gets the win. Sean was there. That's why he's not with us. They're still ranked third in the country. Starting off the show this week, we have Space Oddity by David Bowie, the legendary English musician who unfortunately passed away this week on Monday, I believe it, or it was Sunday night, and everybody found out on Monday David Bowie passed away. Another icon of the music world gone. So rest in peace to David Bowie. Uh,
And also, Alan Rickman, you may know him as Professor Snape from
of
Harry
course,
Potter.
of course, and it was
Also,
really, really a tragic week
yeah,
in general. Um,
for the music, for the entertainment industry,
yes,
actually.
definitely, very sad. So our thoughts are with David Bowie's family, and of course Alan Rickman's family as well. Both dying at age 69 and of cancer. So very sad.
Sucks.
Yeah, it totally sucks.
I
So
I I do have this to say about David Bowie. I was listening to the radio this past week, and um, one of the radio hosts said that David Bowie one of those people who, I mean, like a lot of people, they look for fame, but
right.
David Bowie wasn't one of those people.
No, definitely
Was a
not.
person that where fame sought him, and I think that really pretty well David Bowie's life. And I also heard that there was a time where he was trying to figure out if he wanted to be a like an artistic artist,
Right.
like in painting and drawing, and uh, like you go to an art museum to see it, or a musical artist, which is
Right.
very something rare to see. You don't usually find that. So a very talented uh, person, and it's sad to see him pass away.
And one
Pass.
last thing about David Bowie before we move on to the sports world. I believe his last album, ironically enough, came out a week ago from Friday on his
Oh wow!
birthday, his 69th birthday, and then he died 2 days later. And I haven't listened to the album, but from everything I've heard, it's basically he kind of the writing was on the wall. David Bowie knew he was probably
Hmm.
going to die soon, and so the album's kind of a tribute to his fans and his legacy. And it's nice. I guess it's closure for a lot of diehard Bowie fans, and that's really all I have to say on it. Rest in peace, David Bowie. Rest in peace, Alan Rickman. And moving on to the sports world, it was a pretty dramatic week really all around in the NBA, or excuse me, the NFL, on the field, off the field, starting with the wild card round. All four road teams won.
I think that's the first in
It is the
NFL
first
history.
time in NFL history that has ever happened. And first game wasn't really a lot to talk about. It was the Chiefs blowing out the Texans. I think a lot of people saw that coming, 30-0. And then games two and three of last weekend were very crazy endings.
Right.
I wouldn't say they were great games, but the endings were just insane.
Just
Very,
bizarre.
very, very different too. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought when I went to bed, the story of the game was the Martavius Bryant catch, where he basically glued it to his leg and held
Right.
on. That was the story of the game when I went to bed. Waking up, it was a completely different. It was a different scenario as Vontaze Burfict just laid right into Antonio Brown.
I have two things. The Martavis Bryant catch was a tremendous catch. I
Right.
mean, it's a freak of nature play, but it shouldn't have been a catch because he didn't have both feet in with complete
Yeah.
possession of the ball. So it should not have been a catch. I mean, it still doesn't take away what a
Incredible
fantastic
feat it was.
play it was and
Yeah.
catch it was, but it shouldn't have been a touchdown. It should have been called incomplete. And second of all, with the ending of the game, it's just I tweeted this out. I mean, it's why the Bungles are the Bungles. I mean, it was just classic Bungles. They
Yeah.
bungled it up,
That's
and
they
it
haven't won a
let
playoff game since
right.
1991 or whatever it is.
Yeah, and let's start with the play calling after the Vontaze Burfict interception of who was it, Landry Jones.
Yeah.
Um, in that situation, the Bengals are already in field goal range. You're up two, um, or no, you're up one, 17-16, correct?
Yes.
That was the score.
You're talking about the series of plays that led up to the Jeremy Hill fumble, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. Okay.
Well, yeah, so it was 17-16, correct? That was the
Yes.
score at the time.
Mhm.
If or no, I think it was 16
Well, either
15
way,
actually.
either way,
Yeah,
either way.
it was 16-15. Um in that situation, you're already in field goal range. I think the smart play was for the Bengals to just take a knee, force the Steelers to call their timeouts on
Right.
defense, and kick the field goal to put yourself up by 4.
Right.
But instead, of course, Marvin Lewis, being Marvin Lewis, he overthinks things, tries to run the ball, and Jeremy Hill fumbles it. Now, I don't really put the blame on Jeremy Hill for that
Right.
because of the play calling should have been different in that situation. The weather is terrible. It's raining. It's wet, and everyone and their mother knows that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to try to rip the ball out of Jeremy Hill's hands
Right. Because that's all they
like
can
their
do.
life depended on it.
That's
Right,
all they can
right,
do in that situation.
right. So the safe play would have been to just take 3 knees, force the Steelers to call all 3 of their timeouts on defense, kick the field goal. You're up 4. Now the Steelers need to march the length of the field and score a touchdown to win. With I think it would have been a minute 15 left.
Yeah.
With no timeouts.
Yeah.
With no timeouts, by
Which
the
is a
way.
tall order considering Ben Roethlisberger was coming back and he had no arm strength left. I mean, his
Right.
arm was so banged up in that game, and it still is
Right.
going into this week. So that's a lot to ask of the Steelers.
Right.
I agree with you. Marvin Lewis completely screwed it up and should have lost his job, but he didn't.
Yes, it's the fact that he has it, that he still has a job, is just blows my mind. And I was saying this like, as soon as the game ended, I was like, if I was the Bengals owner, I would fire Marvin Lewis as soon as he stepped off the field,
Right.
and I would cut Vontaze Burfict as soon as he stepped off the field, also.
Right.
Because Vontaze Burfict pretty much cost his team the game.
Right. And to be honest,
even more so than Jeremy Hill did.
Right. And that penalty was dumb, and just how stupid can you be? He was 100% targeting Antonio Brown.
Right.
He had been going after him and the Steelers really 100%. All games they played this year, including this one. I thought the penalty on I hate Pac-Man Jones. I'll just come out and say
Yeah.
it. I don't think he should be in the league, but
Right.
I think the penalty on him was a little weird.
That penalty. Uh, well, first of all, Joey Porter
What's he
just
doing on the
wandered
field?
onto the field. Joey Porter should have been flagged, and it should have been offsetting penalty, so it shouldn't have even counted. It
Right,
should have just been the 15 yards for Vontaze Burfict's hit. Um, and and then there's another play earlier, or a series of plays earlier in the game, where Giovanni Bernard got speared and was knocked out of the game, fumbled the football. The
right,
refs,
and
the
no
refs
foul.
fucked up on that play too in a number of ways. First off, it should have been a 15-yard spearing penalty on the Steelers.
Right.
Second of all, that should have been a fumble, and the Steelers should have scored if the officials didn't call the penalty. So they kind of screwed the officials once again, screwed that up again.
Yeah. I mean, it
Um,
was an ugly, ugly game by
right,
the officials.
and then
Pittsburgh. Sorry, go
and
ahead.
then there's sorry, and then later in the game, there's a similar type of play with Vontaze Burfict where he spears. I mean, I didn't see exactly the play, but with Marcus Wheaton, but it sounded like it was a similar type play where it was spearing
Right.
involved. The guy led with the crown of his helmet, and it was so Marcus Wheaton got speared, and that play was flagged, and rightfully so. It should have been a
Mhm.
flag, but
Yeah, I agree.
and when you add the fact that Martavius Bryant's catch, the incredible catch, actually counted when it shouldn't have because he didn't have complete possession and only had 1 foot in the end zone.
Mhm.
When he did have complete possession, when you add up all those different plays, it makes you wonder whether the NFL wanted the Steelers to win if the game was fixed
Uh,
because there's a number of plays where where it went the Steelers' way. Now, I'm not saying that the
right.
Cincinnati Bengals should have won that game because they didn't deserve it with the play
Yeah,
calling
definitely not.
of Marvin Lewis and the stupid penalties that they took. But one has to wonder, had the game been called correctly in a number of instances, then the outcome of the game would have been different. And
It would have been. The Bengals would have won
yeah,
100%. I mean, I don't know
right.
if there was a fix or anything, but I did
It,
notice
it
that
it
there
has
were
to make
a lot.
you wonder.
It just makes you think. And I mean, there were a lot of calls that did go in the way of the Steelers. I don't know if there was a fix. I feel like, I mean, that they'd have to be pretty in depth to have something like that happening. But I don't
Right.
know. Um,
But I mean, with the way that the NFL has acted the last couple of seasons, it wouldn't surprise me.
right.
But I mean, I'm not saying that there definitely was, but it makes you think and makes you wonder. And there's plenty of evidence that would support that thought. And if you want to call it a conspiracy theory, there's evidence to
Right.
support that.
All right. So moving on from the Bengals deal. One last thing, actually, we both agree Vontez Burfict 3 game suspension
Yes,
should have been more. Uh,
right. I was saying it should have been at least 6.
yeah,
And the fact,
that sounds fair to
yeah,
me. I thought he should have been suspended at least 4. I'm not going to get into that. I mean, that was a bad call, but on only suspending him 3 games. But we'll move on because we got to move on to the next game. The Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks was a boring, boring game until about the fourth quarter. It was just slow. It was you were watching all these people. They looked so cold, and then all of a sudden the Seahawks scored 10 points, and the Vikings looked like they were in trouble. They got the ball back with about a minute and a half or so to play, and they started to march down the field. And Blair Walsh, their kicker, he had already been 3 for 3 that day, comes out. I think it was what, a 27-yard field goal attempt?
I think it was a 22-yarder.
Oh wow, even worse. So Blair Walsh comes in and
Actually, no,
completely
I think you
misses.
are right. It was a 27-yarder.
Either way, he completely misses. He's not even close. Um, Seahawks win this game 10-9. They're on to Carolina. Your heart just goes out to Blair Walsh, even though that's a kick he's got to make. I mean,
Yeah.
I still don't know how he completely just missed that field goal.
I mean, and earlier in the game, he made a field goal where the laces were in when they
Right.
should have been out. So it's the laces thing definitely doesn't affect Blair Walsh all that much.
Right.
But
I think
I
he
mean,
just
it's
straight up
just
missed it.
yeah, it's just one of those things where he didn't really get a great kick off. He hit the turf before he hit the ball.
Right.
Um, and so I mean, it's just one of those things where it happens and it sucks. Um,
The worst
like you
possible
said,
spot for it to
yeah.
happen.
I mean, like you said, Brian, you got your heart has to go out to Blair Walsh. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and give him credit for staying out and talking to reporters after the game. Um, that that man, he's gonna come back from this.
Yeah, definitely. It's tough when something like this happens, especially in a big spot. I mean, all the pressure's on. I don't want to heap too much on Blair Walsh. I mean, he should have made the kick, but I have no idea what it's like. I couldn't make a 27-yard field goal with a T on it. So, I mean, I have no idea what it's like to be in that spot, let alone the pressure of the playoffs. So I hope Blair Walsh comes back from this stronger than ever. I have a feeling he will. Seahawks advance. They have to be feeling very lucky at this point. Um, and
the
I mean, the
the
Seahawks are
funny,
pretty good, obviously,
yeah,
but they definitely have to be feeling a little bit lucky after
lucky.
the way they won it.
Yeah, I mean the funny thing is that it seemed like the Vikings actually controlled most of the game.
Yeah.
I mean they everything, almost everything was going their way for much of the game
Right.
until the Seahawks scored those 10 points. But I mean there's a after the game there's a bunch of Minnesota Vikings fan reactions to it,
Yeah.
and there's a kid that kicked a 27-yard field goal. It was low and would have been blocked,
I
but
saw that.
he made it, and he was like, "See that, Blair Walsh? It's that
That's
easy."
how it's done. That's how it's done. Yeah. That
Yeah,
was I felt that was tough to that video was tough to watch. A lot of
yeah,
the fan reaction videos, especially in moments like that,
yeah.
are just so tough to watch.
I
Uh,
mean, and there's one guy where he was standing up watching the game, and then he just falls to his knees
Crumbles to his
and
knees.
and falls to the floor face down, and the
Poor
dog
guy.
just walks over it to check on him to make sure he's not dead. I mean, it's so terrible that we're
No,
laughing at it
it's
at this,
funny.
but
It is
it
funny.
is funny, and I do have friends that are a huge Vikings fan, and it was just terrible. That's just a brutal way to lose a game.
Definitely.
Worse than the way that the Bengals lost, because the Bengals are just being stupid,
Right.
and that's how they
Vikings
lost their
had
game.
that. The Vikings had that.
Yeah,
Moving
yeah,
on to the last game of the weekend, not a lot to say. Redskins Packers. Packers advanced. Redskins led early on, but the Packers ended up coming back. They scored most of the points at the end of the game, and they're moving on. They're on to Arizona, and I don't really have a lot to say about that game. Do you?
yeah. I don't have much to say other than it seemed like the Packers finally found their mojo and got
Yeah.
their mojo back on offense. Which, if you're a Cardinals fan, you got to be a little nervous heading into the game
Definitely.
tomorrow or tonight,
Tonight.
actually.
It's tonight. And
Yeah,
so that's a good segue into today or tonight, however you want to word it. The first game of the divisional round. The first
25 minutes or 30 minutes from
We
now.
are 30 minutes away from the first game of the divisional round. I know Ethan's excited. It is the Kansas City Chiefs at the New England Patriots. The Chiefs are on an 11-game winning streak, I think. Maybe 12,
Yes,
11. Okay,
11.
11. They won every game towards the end of the regular season. The Patriots went into the playoffs banged up. They're coming back. A lot of them are very healthy now. This is probably been the least talked about game so far this weekend, and I think it's going to be actually a pretty good one.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting game. I mean, it was a weird week for the Patriots, and we'll talk about that later. But
Right.
um, Gronk kind of got an injury out of nowhere. There's some people, myself and John Rice included, who think that maybe the drama with Gronk was to kind of throw the Chiefs off. And I mean, you can't put it past Bill to do that.
No, of course.
But I mean, it's definitely interesting. There's a lot of people here have been kind of nervous about this game, to be honest.
Are you?
But I mean, uh, early in the week I was a little bit nervous, but now once we're close, especially since I mean the whole thing with Chandler Jones and
Right.
Gronk and Brady suffered a high ankle sprain against the Dolphins in Week 17. I mean, I was a little bit nervous at the beginning of the week, but now that the game is here, I've kind of looked at it and said, the Chiefs are banged up too. I mean,
Right.
Jimmy Macklin, he's playing, but he has a high ankle sprain. He's not going to be able to do anything.
And Spencer
He's just there as a decoy. And you also have Tamba Ali and Justin Houston. They're injured also.
Yeah.
So I mean, both teams are kind of banged up in this game. But I think the big factor is that Edelman's coming back. Now, you don't really know how Edelman is going to respond, but he has been out there practicing the last 4 weeks. And it's been 2 months since he's last played, so I think he should be healed by now. And he's looked good when he's making his cuts in practice. So I think Edelman is going to be a big part of the game today. And I think he's going to help the offensive line that has been struggling so much.
Right.
The last few weeks, especially. Because Brady is going to be able to get the ball out quicker because he does have Edelman running those quick stick slant routes to get the ball out quickly. I think the spread of this game is just about right. I can see the Patriots winning this game by 4. It's 5. It's 5.5 is the spread, but I could see the Patriots winning from anywhere between 4 and 7 points.
Right.
So I think the Patriots are going to win. I'm going to say 26-19, 27-23, somewhere around that. I mean, I played the game in Madden. That was a 33-26 win for the Patriots. But, yeah, I think that's the Patriots are going to come out with a victory.
Yeah,
because I mean the Chiefs don't, outside of Jeremy Macklin and Travis Kelce, they don't really have much receiving threats. I mean, most of their threats is going to be on the ground with Charkandrick West and Spencer Ware. So,
right.
And the Patriots defense is very underrated. They're easily a top 10 defense in the NFL. In fact, they're not easily, but they are a top 10 defense this season. So, yeah, I think the Patriots are going to win this one.
I'm going with the Patriots in this one. I'm going with all the home teams this week as opposed to last week when I picked all the road teams and got that right. So I'm going the opposite this week. Um, yeah, I think this will be a good game. I'm actually looking forward to watching this one in a couple minutes too. Um, should be interesting. I could honestly see the Chiefs pulling off the upset. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, at least.
I
Um,
mean, the Patriots have only lost at home in the playoffs three times, twice to the
right.
Ravens and
Once
once
to
to
the
the
Jets.
Jets.
So we'll
And
see.
they've
It's
so they're like
it's
9-3. They're 9-3 at home in the divisional
It's
round
it's it's
under
still the
Brady
Chiefs
and
are on a roll.
Belichick.
They've won 11. They've won 11 straight. I'm not saying that the Patriots are for sure going. I think the Patriots will win, but I think the Chiefs will play well. Moving on to the next game tonight, the Arizona Cardinals against the Green Bay Packers. It's a rematch of a game from about 3 weeks ago when the Packers went down to Arizona and got whooped, like just absolutely destroyed. And this time, like you said earlier, the Packers come into this game. Offense looks much improved. They look pretty good against the Redskins. And Arizona, I think, wants to prove to a lot of people that they belong in the top conversation of the best team in football. I'm going with the Cardinals in this one. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be better, obviously. I mean, anything's better than the Packers Cardinals game from a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah.
I
I,
think I think the Cardinals will win, though.
I think this game is going to come down to a field goal, a last second field goal. It just has that feel. And I've been struggling with this pick all week. I mean, do I pick the Cardinals? Do I pick the Packers? I think it's going to be a very close game. Um, I mean, the Cardinals a couple of weeks ago did look like the best team in football. I mean, their defense is excellent. Their off- offense is very good. Carson Palmer, you got John Brown, and Larry Fitzgerald, um, and also David Johnson at running back, who was a savior for me in fantasy.
Right.
Um, but I mean, I don't know. This game kind of reminds me of the divisional round between the Patriots and Jets, where the
You know,
Patriots, the last meeting between in the regular season between the Patriots and Jets, the Patriots won 42-3 and absolutely embarrassed the Jets. They come and that was a nationally televised game too. I think it was on either Sunday night or Monday night football. And then
right.
you have the Packers and the Cardinals in a similar situation where the Cardinals win 38-0 um, at home.
I think it was
And
38 to
that
38, but whatever.
okay, but yeah, I mean it was a blowout. And
Right.
then you fast forward to this week, and uh, most people I think are picking the Cardinals this week, but Uh, I, you just can't count out the Packers. The Packers
Right.
have that, or Aaron Rodgers has that playoff experience and that playoff pedigree. Um, and he's a big time quarterback, and you just can't count him out. And I mean, not to say that the Cardinals aren't ready for the playoffs in prime time because they've made the playoffs the last two seasons too. They made it to the Super Bowl, but I mean, do you know what Carson Palmer's record in the playoffs is?
Not good.
Yeah. So I mean, that's my point, um, ex- and so I think I'm gonna go with the Packers on this one,
All right.
um, and I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. I think it could be like come down to 38-35, 31-28.
Mm. I can see that too. I think this will be one of the underrated games of the week because everybody remembers the blowout that's still fresh in everyone's mind. I don't think a lot of people are talking about this one. So I do think Arizona is going to win because it's at home and because the Packers have been so inconsistent at times this year. Um, but I do think it will be a good game. Moving on to the first game tomorrow, we have the Carolina Panthers and the Seattle Seahawks in the playoffs against each other for the second consecutive year. This time it's in Carolina. A lot of hype surrounding this game. I really think this game could go either way. It's
I agree.
I could honestly, I obviously I want the Panthers to win, being down here and everything, but I could really see the Seahawks win this one. I think anybody could, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick the Panthers, but I could definitely see Seattle winning.
I'm gonna pick the Panthers as well, but
Right,
I'm like you, Brian. I could easily see the Seahawks winning this game. I mean, they have the playoff experience, um, and you have Russell Wilson, who's a big time quarterback, and he doesn't
right,
turn the ball over, which is key and it's very important in the playoffs. Um, and so, but I like the last game where I said they could come down to field goal. I think this game could come down to field goal too. I was talking to
definitely.
Brian about this earlier, but last night I played this game on Madden, and um, the and so the Panthers. I was playing as the Panthers, and entering the fourth quarter, the Panthers were down 14, 24 to 10. And this was early in the fourth quarter. And the Panthers come back and score 17 points in the fourth quarter, 17 points unanswered, and win
Right.
24 or 27 to 24 on a last second field goal. I could see that uh, that sort of game actually happening
Definitely.
this week between
I
these two
could
teams.
I could definitely see that happening. These two teams are very evenly matched. Obviously, the Panthers are a little banged up on injuries too. Everyone is at this point. But I'm going to go with the home team here. I'm going to go with the Panthers in a game I'm very excited for. And that brings us to the last game of the weekend. This one, I think a lot of people are saying could go either way too. I think it's a little less interesting now that there's no Antonio Brown. But Pittsburgh, Denver, another rematch. That's the third rematch of the weekend. I think Pittsburgh won the first time in the Steel City, and
Yes, they did.
this time it's in the Mile High City. And I'm gonna go with the home team. I just because the Steelers are so banged up, they don't have Antonio Brown.
Right.
It's looking like they're not going to have D'Angelo Williams. I do remember, and now there's a lot of history with the Steelers, but we all remember a couple of years ago when they were the sixth seed and they went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl against the Seahawks. That was about 10 years ago, but I just
Who?
don't see it happening this
Oh yeah,
time.
yeah. That was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening this time. I'm going to go with the Broncos.
Yeah, you know me. I want the Steelers to win.
Right.
Um, but and if the Steelers were healthy, if the Steelers had Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger did not have a noodle arm or a noodle arm or an even bigger noodle arm than Peyton Manning, or if they had
Right.
D'Angelo Williams, I would pick the Steelers in a heartbeat. But having Antonio Brown changes things, and having Ben Roethlisberger shoulder hanging on literally by a thread changes things a lot. And I heard on the radio earlier this week they said this might actually be like one of the few games where Peyton Manning has more zip on his fastball than the opposing quarterback.
Yeah.
Uh, because we all know the last couple of seasons, Peyton Manning has had a noodle arm. He's had a noodle arm all season this year. Um, but I mean, I think this game could still go either way. But I think a strong Denver defense is going to trump a banged up Pittsburgh offense. So unfortunately, I'm going to go with the Broncos. I'm going to go 16-10 Broncos and
Low
win this
scoring game
one.
for sure. Low scoring game for
Yeah,
sure, especially with the Steelers without all their weapons. I'm
right.
not a score guy, so I won't give a score, but I definitely am seeing low scoring. Kind of like last week, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, almost
Right.
low scoring.
Uh, and also kind of like Seattle and Minnesota last week also.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I could still see the Steelers winning, but I mean, both teams' offenses are not very good right now because of injuries, especially for the Steelers. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, and I think the Broncos are going to eke it out, but
Yeah.
uh, I'm certainly going to be rooting for the Steelers.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be a good one. It'll be a good weekend of NFL football. And speaking of NFL football, we're going to stay with the NFL chat
Yeah,
here and talk about.
just one more
Sorry.
thing. Sorry, Brian, but I think the Broncos Steelers game is probably going to be the worst game out of the four this
I
week,
can see that too. I can see that for sure, just because of how low scoring it's going to be,
and
or how
also
weak.
how both quarterbacks have noodles for arms.
Yeah, definitely. But moving on to or staying in the NFL is returning to the entertainment capital of the world, Los Angeles, with the LA Rams, the Los Angeles Rams. That's going to take a long time to get used to saying, but the Los
I,
Angeles Rams are back.
I'm sure it won't take that long for our parents, since the Rams originally came from Los Angeles to begin with. But I have a few thoughts on this one.
Go ahead.
One, I'm okay with the Los Angeles having an NFL franchise. I thought it would always be either the Jaguars moving there or um, there be an expansion team, or the Chargers would move there, or even the Raiders
And the
would move
Chargers may
there.
still move there
But
too.
right, but I thought the Raiders probably had the best shot, um, especially since earlier this season. And I just have to say this too. Um, the way that the NFL went about this was an embarrassment. I mean, it was so bad the way that they handled this. I mean, yeah, it's great that you want a team to put in LA, but I mean, don't advertise it. Don't openly advertise it, and don't openly string three franchises along, and destroying fan
Right.
bases.
I think that's why
Um,
Lewis is so upset is because of
right.
how long
Well,
it took. I mean, I understand why St.
yeah.
Louis is upset. Obviously, I mean they've just lost their NFL team, but
Right.
I think part of the frustration lies in the fact that the NFL took forever on this, and it was just brutal process. And I think that's where a lot of I feel like a lot of people in St. Louis aren't even going to bother watching the NFL next season.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame them. And the city of St. Louis had proposed and approved a new stadium plan. That's
Right.
what is most terrible about the Rams moving is that St. Louis wanted to keep the Rams, and they openly wanted to keep the Rams. They were willing, taxpayers were willing to approve a stadium plan, but the only reason why that stadium plan didn't work is because Kroenke is a douche,
Right.
never wanted to stay in St. Louis, and the NFL is just a bunch of greedy assholes who want the taxpayers to pay for majority of the stadium. The taxpayers of St. Louis already were willing to pay some of the fees to build a new stadium, but Kroenke wanted more. The NFL wanted them to pay more, and it's a disgrace. And that's what makes me so angry about the Rams moving. It's not that the Rams moved, but it's the Rams.
It's
It's the
how they
fact that yeah, it's how they did it. It's how they um, just ignored the St. Louis stadium plan. I mean,
Mhm.
the city council members took time to develop that plan and that proposal to build a new stadium in St. Louis, and the
Right. It's
NFL
not like
just
they
spit it
spent any time at
right in their
all.
face.
They thought this.
Yeah, I mean, and the NFL just spit right in their face. I mean, I could have saw the Chargers or the Raiders move better and easier because they didn't actually propose any new stadium ideas. St. Louis did, and they ended up losing their franchise, which I think is an absolute shame.
Let me just say this on everything. First off, Stan Kroenke is the majority shareholder in my favorite soccer team, Arsenal, and I'd just
He's
like to
a
say
douchebag,
that
pretty douchebag.
yeah, I would just like to say he can go to hell for what he did to St. Louis. Because I feel for St. Louis. You and I both know St. Louis is a great sports city. Um, I've been there. It's actually a very good sports city. They love the Cardinals more than anything, and they love the St. Louis Blues too. And Stan Kroenke is. I didn't know this until this week. He's named after Stan Musial and Enos Slaughter, and
Oh
who
my
are two
god!
and he's two legends of Cardinals. And he moved the Rams out of St. Louis. Like how? What a slap in the face.
What a
Um,
what a douchebag!
what
Literally,
a and so yeah,
what an
Stan,
asshole!
on behalf of Arsenal FC, I wish you'd buy some players, and you can go to hell for what you did to St. Louis. Um, uh, and I'm very proud of St. Louis for the anger that they're showing because they should be angry.
Yes,
The Cronky sucks chants at all the hockey games. I love that. They should
yes,
be angry. That's the exact emotion that I want from a city. So St. Louis is showing me a lot, even though they lost the Rams. So I
right.
have them and the great fans there. Good luck to the Cardinals, and good luck to Stan Kroenke in LA. Before we move
No.
on, Chandler Jones.
Although
Um,
I just have one more thing.
yeah,
Uh, it's funny because the people of St. Louis are more angry that the Rams left than the people of LA are glad that they finally have an NFL team. I
right.
just find that funny. And the NFL basically just forced an NFL franchise on Los Angelinos.
There was a video
Um,
I saw
it
that
was
was
just
so funny.
so it's just so weird. I mean, I get that you want to have a team in LA, but there's a reason why the both the Raiders and why the Raiders moved twice away from LA and why the
Right.
Rams left. There's a reason for it. I mean, it's
There's
not
one.
like they absolutely need an NFL franchise. I mean, USC is pretty much their NFL franchise.
Right.
You, I mean, there's so much going on in Los Angeles that they don't really need an NFL team.
Yeah. One
But
last thing I'll say about this before we move on to Chandler Jones. There's actually two things now. One, there was this guy in LA. Um, he was like, LA gets a football team back. Here's a live shot of how people are celebrating in the streets. And he posted this like 5-second video of just like a blank street with nobody in it. And I thought that was fun. I thought that was funny.
uh,
Now, just one last thing. I think the San Diego Chargers, they have a year now to decide if they'll go to LA. I think the smart move would be to go to LA and not delay any longer on it. But that's just me. Um, and I'm sure you probably feel around the same way, if not different. I don't care. But
I mean, I think I want to see the Chargers stay in San Diego though, because San Diego is a great city. I've been to it. It's
it is a
perfect. I
great
mean,
city.
perfect weather. I mean, it's not like LA where there's so much pollution in the
Right.
air where you got smog every day
LA's
in the
not my favorite
mornings.
city either. I'll say that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
moving on,
Los Angeles kind of seems dirty to me.
I mean, it's all right. But moving on, Chandler Jones, Ethan alluded to this earlier in the show. He went to the hospital. It was very mysteriously. He went to the hospital. I guess it was Sunday or Monday, one of those days, and
It was Sunday
he
morning.
Sunday morning, and it's since come out that he had an allergic reaction or whatever
No,
to
it wasn't
synthetic
an
hair.
allergic reaction. It was just
Well, he had a
he had a
reaction
bad reaction to it.
to synthetic marijuana, or K2, I think it's called. Either
Yes.
way, I will never touch that stuff in my life because it's brain damage. It's potentially brain damaging. I don't have a lot to say
Yeah.
about this, except I
Uh,
think he's stupid for even doing it. I
yeah.
understand that he's probably trying to get around a drug test of some kind. Uh, and try. He probably smokes in the off season because I'm sure a lot of NFL guys do. But at the same time, that's not the way to like. Don't
Yeah.
do that. Like
Uh,
that's A2 is worse for you than
especially
actual weed.
especially a week before a playoff game. And
Right.
like you said, Brian, wait till after the off season until your season's over to do whatever you want. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
did you watch the two videos that I sent you of
What did
the
you send them?
K2 reactions?
No, I
What?
don't think I saw that yet. Actually, I remember you sent it to me, but I didn't see
Yeah.
it yet.
So I mean, I just sent you a Barstool article, and I told you to scroll down to the last two videos. Um, yeah. So those reactions, um, that's the word. Those reactions were like ridiculous. I mean, those people were like literally losing their mind. And
Right.
like you said, Brian, it's
That's
like
what
worse
causes you
than
to.
weed.
It is
And
100% worse than weed.
yeah, and I mean, I'm with you. I mean, since it is worse than weed, why don't you ban that and actually legalize weed? I mean, that makes more sense to, or just
That's what
hey,
I'm
ban
saying.
both. Yeah,
That's
but anyway,
I mean, that's my personal opinion is that
yeah,
this synthetic shit should be banned forever. And I'm looking at the article you sent me now because I just remembered you did send it to me. I was asleep when you
yeah,
sent it to me. So Chris Carter said he thinks
yeah.
that
He's an
so
idiot.
Chris Carter, first off, is just so dumb sometimes. Uh, so
I think Chris Carter lost some brain cells from the drugs that he did
he
when he
did
was in the
worse
NFL.
drugs than K2. And
Yeah,
so yeah, that was weird on Chris Carter's part. Like I said, I don't really have a lot to say about it. Uh, I'm somebody who personally believes that marijuana should be legalized nationwide, and it shouldn't be a drug tested for drug. But I just think that there's better ways to like spend your time than doing that. Like it's just like K2 causes you to it causes actual brain damage. I remember my
yeah.
dad told me that like there's an epidemic on Long Island that's going on with this stuff.
With
And
K2.
with K2, and it just sounds awful. Like I'd never touch that in my life.
Yeah, definitely a dumb decision by Chandler Jones's part, and I wish he didn't do it, and I wish he didn't do it a week before the big playoff game. But let's wrap this thing up because kickoff is
Yes,
about to
it is
start.
game time, and we are about to wrap this up with the walk off. Ethan, you go first.
Yes, my walk off or something that's grinding my gears is the Interscholastic Athletic Association in the state of Wisconsin has banned such chants such as airball, scoreboard, we can't hear you, you can't do that at high school basketball games and sporting events. This is classic pussification of America. I mean, come on, Wisconsin, get a grip. This is part of sports. This is high school sports where, I mean, where you learn how to deal with heckling as an athlete um, and crap, I forget the word. Hostile environments on the road. So, I mean, we need as a society, we need to stop trying to coddle our high school athletes and just let them live. I mean, obviously, you don't want something to go too far. You don't want to hear any derogatory chants
Definitely not.
or insulting chants, but those chants, scoreboard, airball, you can't do that. We can't hear you. They are literally harmless. And we can't hear you is heckling the other team's fans if they're
Yeah.
quiet, if they're being quiet, and because their team's getting blown out. I mean, what the hell is going on with America? America. I mean, I actually kind of the, there are three things that I agree with Donald Trump on. One is Tom Brady didn't had nothing to do with Deflategate. Two, actually, I even forget the second thing that that I agree with him. But so they have two things that I agree with, and this is another one where the society is becoming soft. Um, and so, I mean, we just need to get a grip as society, man up, grow some balls or ovaries or whatever you are,
Oh.
get some cojones in you, and just deal with this stuff. Deal with heckling. I mean, what are these kids going to be like when they go to college basketball games or when they actually play in college and there's real heckling? That's even worse than whatever you would hear at a high school game.
No, I
I mean,
completely agree.
it's
I
it's
agree. This is
gone out of
ridiculous.
control.
Grow some ovaries. That's all I'll have to say. Before we sign off, I don't really have anything to say for my walk off other than let's go High Point playing Coastal tonight. Coastal is complete traitors to the Big South Conference, and I hope we destroy them. So go High Point. Have a good weekend, everybody. Taking us out, we've got Pressure by now two deceased artists, David Bowie and Freddie Mercury. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the playoffs. See you next time.